Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the very first episode of Cinema Tour dell'Americana. I am your host, Jay Anderson, and beside me is the scholar and my friend, Victor.
Charmed.
And let us not forget the jovial and most admired member of our trio, the prestigious J.R. Alva.
How's it going, everybody?
Now, of course, we had a chance to finally visit New Rome and admire its architectural wonders and the up-and-coming project within its city walls, the Megalopolis.
Megalopolis, a great place of progress and starting place of the future.
That place sucked, guys. Do you remember I got mugged?
Yes.
Is that why you don't have a cape?
Little JR does not have his cape. He seems to be missing his back garment.
Yeah, you guys were there when it happened. I broke a guy's jaw. It broke my ribs.
Yes, I mean, we weren't going to get involved in such violent behavior. I mean, needless to say, we had our own things to deal with.
We were studying the duplicitous nature of humanity.
Oh, yes. Contemplating the paradox between those who are in need and those who are well endowed.
All right, you know what? F this. We're not doing this bit. You guys said you were going to make fun of me, and here you are making fun of me.
Oh, why not? This is fun!
Which episode?
One episode.
I was in the hospital. Did you guys forget that part?
Megalon and Caesar,
No,
the
no.
ending.
That bit. We're doing movie grade regular, guys. Sorry about that. Seriously.
He's
It's
just
okay.
he's just pissed because he doesn't have a cape. That's what it is.
I heard that.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is Movie Grade. I'm your host, J.R. Alva, and I'm joined here today with...
Jay Anderson.
And Victor E.
Alright, so 2 weeks ago, we got a chance to watch Megalopolis. A film that apparently is like 30 years in the making, 40 years in the making?
40 years.
40 years in the making. Apparently the creator of this movie took him, I think from sources, Vic. It took him a long time to get this going, and he actually ended up sacrificing a lot to make this movie. You know what? There's a lot to be said about this movie. There's a lot of elements that are going to be surprising to most people. But at the same time, you're going to catch a lot of obviousness if you're, a theater major or something like that. But I think this is a movie that you should definitely watch. We're going to go ahead and dissect this movie. For those of you that don't know, in the trailer, this is a movie about a guy that can stop time. And this is a weird movie kind of presenting something in the present tense, but with technology that's a little bit more weird in comparison. There's a lot of elements that come out of there. A lot of a good cast. A lot of people came out of the woodwork even. Shia LaBeouf was one of those I wasn't actually ready for.
Shy as surprise.
But anywho, we're gonna definitely dissect this movie. I like this movie. But let's go ahead and go right into where just again being really surprised by actors that just came out of the woodwork. Again, surprised Shia LaBeouf back into acting. So yeah, it was one of those movies that again I was just surprised by that. First impressions on this movie for myself, I did like it. Again, there's a lot to chew on this movie. There's so many different aspects that pop out. But first impressions, I enjoyed myself. It was very interesting, and you definitely got to pay attention to what you're watching, because if not, you'll get lost. So first impression, I liked it. What did you think?
My first impression on the movie, and before I even get to the first impression, I want to talk about my expectations first, because I think it had a lot to do with my first impressions. As I stated before, this is guy who made The Godfather. This is a prestigious director. And when I first saw the trailer, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be an immaculate intellectual piece that I could just see myself just chewing and digesting. At the end of the movie, I kind of felt a bit underwhelmed. Honestly, my first impression of the movie was, this was a good movie, but at the same time, what did I just watch? And that was my honest first impression, if I could be frank here.
Honestly, I kind of felt... I love Francis Ford Coppola. He's made classics, Apocalypse Now, the Godfather trilogy, so many other great films. And to see this, it's kind of confusing because one part of me wants to love it, and half of me goes, "What in the hell is going on here?" And it's great to see that he got to make his passion project that he'd been trying to develop since the early '80s, late '70s. He sometimes says it differently, like the timeline how he's thought of this film, and it's a weird mess that's interesting, yet you poke too many holes in it, you're gonna find something. There's something amiss.
I can see where your guys' point is on that. For me, I guess I know I spoke to you, so I knew that it was a guy's passion project, and then of course I had never heard of the movie until we saw the trailer, and then I only saw the trailer that one time. Also, I didn't continue watching any other trailers; I just saw the one, and I was just kind of wondering where this was going to go. To me, in the beginning, I think it felt like there was some weird Matrix vibes, kind of sort of going, because obviously Lawrence Fishburne is in it. So I was like, really? Lawrence Fishburne? All right.
But he was in Apocalypse Now with Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. But yeah, again, to me, I wasn't prepared for that, and I was just, again, I'm happy to see Lawrence Fishburne, people come out of retirement, I guess, and like I said, Shia LaBeouf was a weird surprise because he played a very weird character. And then I believe I spoke to you, Jay, about before watching this. I am not a huge fan of Adam Driver, and this was a little bit different though. Like I got to see a different side of him, and I think that was something that I needed to see because for the longest time I just felt like it was just Adam Driver every single movie. I didn't feel like he ever stopped being Kylo Ren at one point. So I was happy about that. So the acting at the very least, everybody played their part. How did you feel?
I mean, acting wise was just phenomenal. As you stated earlier, fantastic cast, Audrey Plaza, manipulative, evil woman. Fantastic job. Shayla Buff, just that androgynous, horrible, manipulative, fascist figure. Just fantastic job as Claudio. Just amazing job. And, Adam Driver himself to play this character, too. I mean, this is a character that's supposed to be an optimist with driven passion, and that's something that's really hard because when you try to play a driven person, you can play that character easily as cold-hearted, easily as like tactful and mean. But here's Adam Driver having to play that same driven personality, but maintain a sense of optimism there. And although at times where I felt like the optimism was struggling to shine through, I felt it. He was probably one of the most optimistic characters there, and I actually felt for that. So, fantastic job on Adam Driver's part. Entire cast just great acting, and once again, another movie with Carlo Esposito again. So,
Right, he's in everything.
He is at this point. He's going to be the new Samuel Jackson at this point.
Kevin Bacon.
Honestly, the acting was really well done. They would ham it up when they needed to, and they would take it back when they're not in front of anybody else that they would need to ham it up for. Mm-hmm. Adam Driver is really good actor. Like there's a small small indie comedy Netflix movie called White Noise where he plays like a family man with anxiety over dying, and then something really bad happens, and then how it's him and his wife how they deal with it. And it's really interesting to see versus where he's done some action stuff, he's done some other things. So it's interesting to see him here where he's worked with a lot of legendary directors now at this point. So he's kind of developed a certain style, especially with this one where he's this guy with laying the groundwork for the future. But how is this man going to go about laying the groundwork for the future? And so many others, play a key role in that, where you have Aubrey Plaza, who she is an amazing actor. Or actress, I forget the right term. But she is great. She's great in almost everything she's in. Like, I love Parks and Rec, and you think, oh, she's just going to be like, another version of April. But no, honestly, she is developed as an actress and becomes such, she can do a lot.
Very well versed now.
Yes, exactly. Like, she done like a whole other bunch of movies that are really good, and she has a great range. And honestly, some of the other actors, like Shia LaBeouf, he's a lunatic in every scene. There's a point where, like, this guy looks at me when we're watching, I'm like, yeah, what the Shia LaBeouf was just like, okay, Shia surprise.
For real. And going back to what you were saying, I wanted to point out the theatrics of it. I love that, as you pointed out, sticking with the whole being theatrical and everything in the public eye. And I think that's something that, you know, you don't see as much there. A lot of acting nowadays is telling people keep it subtle, less is more, less and more. And, you know, they had their subtle moments throughout this movie, but when they were out there and they needed to be the political figures that they were, they made sure that they had their booming voice, their arms for presence, and the use of the dramatic pause. It was great.
Speaking of which, when you that you're talking about the acting and everything, I just love how this obviously has a lot of notes of Shakespeare. I think it was actually just today where you really pointed it out that it was Julius Caesar basically, and I guess it was one of those things. So I just loved how all of a sudden Adam Driver's coming in as beginning scene. So and he starts quoting I believe Hamlet. You know, to be or not to be, you know, and it's just like, wait a minute. And that was the click that got me. I was all of a sudden thinking, wait a minute, is he just playing off of Shakespeare? But it was really well done. It was, you know, it was really, really fun that they were able to pull that out. Like you said, that there's a lot of key moments where they're in front of a camera and in front of the public. And then the moment they're in private, they change. They literally turn that public switch off. Because when you're in front of a camera and you're in front of people, you know, just like we make jokes, and we made one recently where it's like, wait a minute, you're a public figure now, so you gotta watch your language and watch what you're saying, you know. So it just makes very, very, very a lot of sense. So and that goes back into the movie, going into it and everything. Because speaking of public figures, Adam Driver himself, his name is Caesar. So it just literally right there. It's called New Rome, the city. So reminiscent of Caesar, Rome, New Rome. And you have, you know, those who want to topple Caesar, you know, a guy that has too much power and people want to topple that guy, you know. So honestly, though, the movie, at least when it comes to a lot of portrayals of just, you know, theme and just trying to get a good story around, obviously, you're stealing from Shakespeare, but at the same token, I think they did a pretty good job. How did you feel?
I mean, aside from that, I mean, the tones itself was actually probably what drives this entire movie, honestly. I think the tones and the themes are going to be what people talk about the most about this movie, or at least in my opinion, what the director wanted to be the focal point of the movie itself. You know, the fact that you had mentioned that, you know, he's named Caesar goes back even more in history. Caesar Catalina is the character's full name, and Catalina was a senator in ancient Greece who actually believed that he had a very optimistic and pessimistic view, like a very passive view. And he believed that, you know, that he was such a kind-hearted senator that he actually believed that if he had the power to rule Rome, he could actually use his compassion and good-heartedness to lead Rome to a utopian society. Of course, he was undermined by another senator, you know, Caesar Claudio. And Claudio...
It was Cicero.
Cicero, sorry. And thank you for that. Cicero. I didn't want to sound like an idiot. And Cicero was the one that went ahead and did a lot of manipulation tactics, a lot of, you know, mudslinging, a lot of, you know, stuff that you see in today's politics. He kind of perfected that, brought in the mudslinging, and through his manipulation and tactics, nobody cared what Catalina said. Nobody cared, and that's how he was able to, you know, uphold power. And I think that's like one of the themes that goes out there, because in a lot of utopian, like, you know, pictures and a lot of utopian cities, we always have this idea that utopia can't exist unless it's built on the foundations of blood, unless it has something dark over here. And here we have Catalina saying, no, utopia could just happen. And the only people that are going to make it seem worse than it actually is are the people who are resistant to change. And that's what we saw. Everyone who was resistant to the change were the enemies, were the ones impeding all the progress in this movie and stuff. And it's something to do that. And again, going back to the themes itself, I just wish that at the end they were executed more properly, because they had all this setup for a great conversation at the end. But, you know, that's not what we got. It was a nice setup. It was a nice correlation of, here are the themes that I want to get across. I'm not sure if it was executed properly towards the end, though.
It has an execution issue once it reaches near the, would say, the third act.
Third act.
Late, even like middle of the second act, where it kind of struggles to figure out What are we trying to do and say? Are we trying to ask the questions of like, how do we create a utopia without destroying the old ideas, or how can we manage ideas and merge into like one centralized, we're not centralized, we're one unified purpose for the future? Because I do think where is trying to say, yeah, we are Rome, where Rome was how Rome used to be. That's how America kind of is now, or not kind of is. It is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really interesting debate of ideas, but a lot of these ideas get muddled with what feels like there's a scene missing. Like insert scene here that should have been here, but
Tie that loose end.
yes, where it should have been maybe a little bit longer, maybe 10 minutes longer would have worked. 2.5 hour movie would have been great.
Kind of funny because that just reminds me of what Chef Gordon Ramsay will say in like one of his shows. Would be like, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that just kind of really it's even in the movies, because you can have it be awesome 90% of the movie, 95% of the movie, but that last 5%, you ruin that. That's it. This movie is just, it can ruin a movie. I can't say though that is the case necessarily for this. It just lowered its impact, I think. Yes. And that's what it is. And so it lowered the impact. It still has that little bit of magic at the end of it, but it's not enough, dare I say, to call it a great movie. That's the only downside. But I did like it though. And going into that too is, you also got to take in account how vivid the colors are, how nice the theme is, and the filmography itself, the picture quality, all of it. I will also say though, I have to give it 100% on that because I loved how they did everything. Their 3-ring circus act that they put with, and everything that goes on. Honestly though, I will say though, like everything, including there's a couple trippy scenes, colors and everything like that. It was very vibrant, very, very, like, if you're looking for something that is really visually appealing to you, it's going to hit those notes, So I will say maybe that's part of the reason why the guy took so long to make this movie, was probably because of that. Special effects wise, not very much practical effects, but special effects wise, this really pulled out all the stops. How did you feel?
I mean, visually the movie is beautiful, and I'm not going to even take away points or anything like that. The scenery, I'm a huge fan of the scenery. I mean, people are going to roll their eyes because you've heard, if people who know me personally have heard this complaint before, but if you're going to have a made-up city, the city should feel like that city. That was all one issue with a particular Batman movie that I don't like. That city just felt like Chicago. It didn't feel like Gotham, This felt like New Rome. This didn't feel like New York. It felt like New Rome. And that's what I really liked, is like, it's based in New York. It's inspired by New York, but it's also inspired by Rome. And he created this new Rome city, and it's beautiful. Scene where all the statues just collapse and get tired of just posing, just beautiful scenery. And then when Megalopolis itself is actually born, the contrast from like the stone, hard centered concrete to the vibrant floral looking gold, if you will, that's just shining, emanating from Central Park. It's just visually beautiful movie.
Though I do find like some scenes, if you look at the background, they don't look great. Now I'm sure it's Kai. He self-financed the film himself. He sold off part of his wine business that he has to fund it. That's a really risky move because in general, if it doesn't do well, you
don't recoup those losses.
Yeah. So like some of the scenes with the backgrounds, if they CG or special effects looks a bit weird. Though it did look really interesting and cool when those statues were just, I guess, crumbling under the weight, I guess, of all the issues, of all the problems within the city. It was really interesting. That was an interesting metaphor for a city itself going.
I mean, going back to that scene, if you notice too, the first statue that we see that actually gets tired is the Statue of Liberty, I mean, the Statue of Justice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So where she just basically puts the weights down and just leans on that sword, you know. And then later, I think we see another statue, literally Atlas, just tired of carrying that world on his
Yeah.
shoulders. It's just beautiful. The symbology, the symbolism of each statue is great too. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh no, definitely. And unfortunately, you kind of knocked out one of my favorite scenes. So with the statues, because I was gonna say that was probably by far my favorite scene of the entire film was just watching those. It's like just literally showing you justice. One of them was Athena, literally bounded on the ground, and so it was just kind of like wow, like you just see these, for lack of another word, is gods basically crumbling and falling, and they're all symbols of what society is supposed to stand for. So it just that's literally how that movie had a really good impact when it came down to that. So favorite scene of the whole movie, my memorable moment of the movie is exactly that, those statues crumbling. What about yours?
My memorable moment,
Yeah.
of the film. There was a lot of memorable moments. Honestly, there's tons of them to take account to. But if I had to pick one, and as clunky as it seems, it's I feel like it was the part of the movie where the conflicts were starting, and it was I guess at this point there's no need to say spoiler alert, right? No, but at this point, Caesar, Catalina had just been shot in the head, and instead of running around with half a face, he decided to use the Megalon, because apparently Megalon, just like in Vibranium in Marvel Comics, it not only can build stuff, it can heal people and power at the same time. So it's a miracle element, and he uses it to build half his face. So he come out there with this glowing eye socket.
Yeah.
And just hearing this man with brain damage still able to confront his enemies and show, yeah, your attempt to kill me didn't work, and your attempt to destroy this didn't work. I'm still pursuing, and I know what you guys are up to. That scene was very memorable to me. For some odd reason, it just stuck to me.
It was oddly funny, that scene. I don't know, was that meant to be to have a accidental oh, is that supposed to be funny? Is that not supposed to be funny?
Was
I
it
don't
the
know.
brain damage part?
The way he was screaming, I guess.
No!
Yeah.
The dude had brain damage. You shot in the head.
I don't know. I just found that really funny. I was just like, what the hell's going on here? Okay, we're going to just go with this. Okay. Though if I had a favorite part, I would be his just drug trip, where they were in, I guess, a circus of sorts, where they had, everything. They had chariot racing. They had wrestling. They had, you name it, singers, Taylor Swift lookalike. And then he is just having his drug trip where he's just going when in Rome, I might as well get as stoned as them.
Mm-hmm.
And he just had this whole heavy debate with his head, and then he's just getting in trouble, and it's what's going on with you, man?
Oh yeah, I think that was one of the things I was mentioning earlier, and that was visually wise. I was like, whoa, okay.
Why is he having an acid trip or whatever he's taking?
Yeah, whatever he's taking was pretty potent stuff. That pretty much wraps up most of our segments. What is it? I guess let's go ahead and get down to the grade. What grade do you give this, Jay?
So before I grade this movie, I just want to point out a couple of things that are going to affect my grade. Okay, just one is the themes and visuals of this movie are there. The execution towards the end is very rushed. And if I had to just point out one thing, because this is going to affect my grade, I liked this movie, and I felt like this movie had the potential to have some serious discussions. As I pointed out, I love the concept that people can't accept utopia as just a nice thing without the concept of something bad. There has to be some type of shadow to this light. But we didn't get that. We had, all the main antagonists were dealt with swiftly. And all the people who challenged him, his uncle, Frank, these guys immediately just changed their mind. It turns out you're great, Caesar. Yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, you're great, Caesar. I was wrong. No, my children are terrible, Caesar. I'm going to donate all my money to Caesar, and I'm going to be known as so-and-so the Grateful. It's just
Cassius the Generous.
Cassius the Generous.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is just did you earn these victories? Because I felt like we ran out of time and we had to just give them to you. So because of the rushed ending and the bad execution towards the end, again, that third act is just a mess. Because of that, I can't possibly give this movie anything higher than a B minus, and it's going to be a B minus because even in the beginning parts of the movie, there's a lot of daydreams and stuff that take you out of the plot, and it's just kind of a mess. Themes, visual, they're there, but it is a messy movie. So B minus for me.
It's rough to kind of grade this because I wanted to love this. I was one of the few films of the year I was like, I am super excited for this. This looks like this is Francis Ford Coppola coming back. You know, he's self-funding his dream passion project, and it's feels like it's missing far too many scenes to be effective. It feels like there'd be a good director's cut to this, maybe, which I hope he does make. He makes a lot of director's cuts to his own films, and especially from going and seeing his old work to seeing his sort of newer work where it's good, but it's different. And that's not to say that he's lost it. It's just saying that I guess he's making art differently. So I have to give it like a C plus. Like I want to love it. Some part of me loves it, but some part of me goes like, well, realistically, this is kind of like, you know, there's this missing. There's this missing. What leads to this? This story needs cohesive. You need a more glue to stick it together.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny because I that was literally where I've been toggling that particular grade in my head between C plus and B minus. Those were actually my two thoughts when it came down to it. But I will say though that I'm gonna go ahead and give it a B minus. I guess, like I said, particularly was not a fan of Adam Driver, and this made me actually like him. I was actually like, okay, thank you. So that was something I was not prepared for. Aside from that, visually speaking, it was amazing. It was colorful. It was vibrant. But I also do completely agree with you that that it didn't finish. It didn't end the way it should have ended, and that was one of those things. And like you, I'm actually hoping. I hope to see a director's cut. I don't know if it was the studio or whoever decided to end the movie this way. But there's also usually you get a lot of people in your ear too that tells you certain things about run times and etc. I don't know. I will. Yeah. All I'm saying is it didn't end strong. That is a big problem. So, man, I almost want to drop it down to a C plus. But you know what? It was this guy's passion project, and I don't want to trample on someone's dreams. But this was a tough one to grade. I'm gonna go ahead and stick with that B minus. But I think I'm gonna actually just salute more your C plus than anything else, because if this was something you were wanting to see and you were let down, I think if we graded on an average, I think I'll probably just go with the C plus.
I mean, honestly, if you let me change my grade, I'd probably go with the C plus too, because I'm being B minus is just me being biased because I really like this guy, but. If I'm completely honest, I think Vic may have correct score here.
Yeah, I think so too.
Honest, because that's not even to be negative on this guy's passion project. It's more trying to be real, but also trying to understand. Like I go from story. I always go from story when I see something. Does this story work? And and granted, I can enjoy like even the lesser forms of cinema. I understand that. And see, like I wanted it to be what I imagined in my head it to be. It was interesting nonetheless. It's just I feel like I needed more.
Yeah. No, like I said, I defer to your grade. Honestly, I think overall, on average, this is a C plus. And sorry, Francis Coppola, but this is. You should have probably finished it stronger, man. And you can be surprised that people are actually okay with even longer run times. And I think if you probably,
3-hour version of this, I imagine we'd pretty kick ass.
If they can make a moderate Justice League in 4 hours,
yeah,
a barely viewable 4 hours, I'm pretty sure you could probably do more.
3 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes, maybe. I feel like a good debate between Caesar versus Claudio, and then set up the confrontation with the uncle and his son Claudio in WoW Platinum.
There's definitely a lot that can be done. A lot more that can be done, and they sopranoed you a little towards the end. They kind of sopranoed you, and it was like, isn't it obvious? And it's like, no, it's not, because this is what we defer to you for. When we watch a movie, we want you to tell us your story, not for you to go figure it out. That's how I feel about it. Anywho, I think that's as good as we can get, guys. Sorry, C+. But I still think you should go and watch it and figure out for your own how you feel about it, honestly. And maybe if we missed anything, go ahead and get mad at us in the comment section, and tell us whatever you think. And just thank you guys for watching. Once again, I'm your host, JR Alva, a voice actor. I'm joined here today with...
I'm Jay Anderson, a manager at PWL, Pro Wrestling Legacy.
And I'm Victory, writer at Modern Myth Comics.
Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, smash that share button, and follow us on all social media. Thank you guys.